From San Carlos, Phil Stant and his mates went round the coast in the supply ships at Tristram to ferry food and ammunition to the front line. This inlet was to become the setting for the war's saddest episode.
2 to 3 seconds, and the devastation that was caused, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Falklands veteran Phil Stant has returned to the islands for the first time since the conflict. He's revisiting the key locations of his war, including the one which has haunted him for 25 years. Today he'll relive life in a trench at Fitzroy and the dreadful events of June the 8th, 1982. Phil and his unit had been sent on the supply ships at Tristram from the fleet's base in San Carlos Bay to the bay at Fitzroy. Their job was to get food and ammunition from the ship to the frontline troops.
I always had this vision about coming back, and I don't know why, but it's something I had to do. I had to find my trench. It is important to me. Because we lived in it for quite a few weeks. I think we're all probably dug in, probably where I am right about now. The trench was always full of water, but we dug it down probably 3 to 4 foot in an L shape, covered it over, and at least you could get a little bit of respite from the biting wind, you know, and hopefully, you know, if the air attacks did come in, at least you had somewhere to try and hide, you know. I hated being here. I hated being in this trench. There was no other world or existence. You know, there's no mobile phones, digital TVs, laptops, computers. There was nothing. You're always fighting this battle within yourself psychologically about, is the attack going to come today? Are we going to get hit today? You're forever fighting the elements, as you can see. You're in a zombie state, you know, you've probably had no sleep for days on end, you know, apart from trying to grab it when you can. I think I remember this part very clearly, because if we just have a look over the ridge, here, this was our toilet facility, and I remember how cold it was when you were squatting down, and the wind and the rain, and it was absolutely freezing, but this was our toilet facility. Not very nice.
The soldiers were surprised by the sudden appearance of the supply ships at Galahad, her decks crowded with Welsh guardsmen.
Even though I was so young, I could still identify the fact that if an attack came in here, it'd be horrendous. And I even thought, you know, these 2 ships now are sitting ducks, and I'm glad I'm here right now, that I've got a hole I can get into if, you know, if it hits the fan. What we didn't realise was, in the background, in the hill we can see in the distance, was an Argentine observation post. You know, and in my mind, I remember saying to the lads and people, surely the troops have got to get off first before the ammunition. But no. I remember just coming down and sitting here where I am now, and I lit a cigarette up, having a minute or two to myself, and suddenly looked round, and I looked round to my left-hand side, and in the distance you could see 2 little dots moving at such a rate. Before anybody could do anything, they were right on top of you here. And then sudden explosions on Sir Galahad, and the fireball, and the shock of people, and, you know, and then suddenly it's not an adventure anymore. And my first thoughts were, you know, selfish I know, but I'm really glad they didn't attack our location, and I'm glad they got the ship. And I always remember thinking that straight away as I was lying there. 2 to 3 seconds, and the devastation that was caused. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And these guys on them ships, no chance.
I can remember I was on the deck getting something out of my bag, and we had an air raid warning. I stood up for a second, and then the next thing I knew, I was lying on the floor. The ship had been hit by a missile, and I knew straight away that I'd lost my leg. And then panic sets in. There's fire surrounding me, and I was just calling out for help. Then I remember 2 guys coming on in fire suits and dragged me out of this blaze. Then I remember being put on a helicopter, and as soon as the helicopter lifted off the ship, there was a massive explosion. And that's all I can really remember, but it feels as though it was yesterday. I can remember it as if it was yesterday.
A chopper landed here, and I always remember this medic saying to me, just grab this stretcher with me. And we grabbed the stretcher, and as the chopper landed in here, we knelt down with a stretcher waiting for the casualties to come off. The doors opened, and on a stretcher out came one of the guys with his leg blown off. Lost it from the knee completely, and I was actually kneeling down, holding the stretcher, and I looked straight down his leg that had been blown off. You know, and you know, for weeks after, you try and get some sleep, and all you could see was this guy's leg.
My memory after that has been on the SS Uganda, the hospital ship. I think I was on a intensive care for 24 hours, and then you're put in a bed on the ward, and I did have nightmares of planes flying over for what seemed like a few days or a few nights.
The lifeboats from the Galahad and Tristan were actually coming into this little cove here, and they'd only reach a certain point, and they had to be pulled, you know, with the ropes. And I always remember the first couple of boats that came in, some of the guys were laughing and joking, probably in shock and relieved that they'd got out.
Don't worry, you're on the camera.
And then by this time, more helicopters had arrived. Pilots tried to blow the life rafts, which was drifting back towards the burning ship. And the life rafts, actually, after the attack, we actually used as makeshift accommodation, you know, just to get out of the wind, so somewhere to dry, to have a bit of a sleep. So we dragged them back up to the location, camouflaged them, and then obviously got in there, and sometimes there were 25 guys in this life raft trying to get a bit of kit, you know. Looking round, it's very quiet and peaceful at the moment, but on that day, June the 8th, 1982, it was very chaotic in this very small cove.
48 men died that day. More than 100 were badly injured.
It suddenly became a makeshift field hospital. There was bodies on the ground, there was people screaming, and a lot of the wounded were treated right here where we're standing now, and unfortunately some of them died on this piece of land. And it's very sad to know that where we're